Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. We were just having a wonderful discussion about something we will not talk about on air. But we have something else very interesting to talk about on the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Well, it started yesterday. I was at the Trump Plaza implosion. I had a really nice room in the hotel at Caesars, which was overlooking the spot.
Which by the way, Anthony, I said, boy, it would have been
hold on, let me get this straight. You actually reserved a hotel room for this. Okay, yes. Continue. Please continue.
Yes. It actually turned out that I ran into probably just in that hotel 4 or 5 people that had worked for either the place I worked at, Trump Regency, or Trump Plaza, or both.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people were there for that.
You were working in the organization.
Yeah, and if the implosion had damaged buildings around, that would have been a metaphor for his presidency.
And it didn't. They really did a great job. It's funny how you get these people that are like critical. Like one guy was like, "Well, your video got pixelated," and I'm thinking, yeah, it's not a 4K camera. I have it on a stand at a window. And it probably felt the blast because we were close enough that it probably got that, and it probably interrupted the transmission to some degree. So yes, if you didn't enjoy that, I didn't have a perfect 4K shot of it. Too bad, but most people did enjoy it. But anyhow, when Mike was on, I made a joke.
Did you get metrics on that, by the way?
I did. They're good, actually. Actually, there's a company now that wants me to work with them based on that. But anyhow. Mike,
hold on.
Go ahead.
Russ'sImplosions.com.
No, it's not that. That would be great. I'm all about implosions. I would cover every implosion in the United States if I
could.
Including the Jets and the Eagles.
CohenCollapse.com.
That's like better. You know, Michael, you get that one. I'm giving you
that one. But when I was doing the pregame for it, and I called it the pregame, I had brought up the word Jaws because there were people on the beach, and Mike and I started in on this whole Jaws thing. So we're going to get into Jaws now. We're going to dig into that.
Yep.
Because it's a movie we all know. And I remember when it first came out, I didn't see it in the movies though. I saw it on cable because we were one of the first neighborhoods in the country to get cable with home box office, HBO, but it was home box office at the time. And so we watched it like probably 6 months to a year after it got released in the theater. And, it was scary. Like we all knew what was happening in that movie. It was, if you were a kid, you were scared to go in the water. So now we get into the movie, and Jaws is very memorable, but you forget about how many versions of Jaws they made. And Mike reminded me yesterday.
Okay, so yes, the original, the one that everybody loves,
yep.
The one that was directed by Steven Spielberg. Mm-hmm. So then a couple years later, I believe the first Jaws was 1975.
That's about right.
Right, and they offered Spielberg the sequel, and he said, "No, I will never do sequels." And of course, then years later, there's all the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
He was still on tour at that point.
Yeah. He passed up the Jaws sequel to do that classic 1941,
which again I liked, but Mike did point out
I liked it, but it was a disaster at the box office. So anyway, so Spielberg passes. They go to another director. It's almost the same writers. But of course, Robert Shaw had been bitten in half in the first movie, and Richard Dreyfuss had just come off winning Goodbye Girl, winning Best Actor for the Goodbye Girl.
People said I looked like back in the day.
Right. So they wrote
about you, Russell.
They wrote him out. They wrote him out by saying that Matt Hooper was on an excursion in the Antarctic and they couldn't reach him. And if you remember Jaws 2, they killed the shark. They kill the shark. Brody kills the shark by having him bite into a power line.
Right, but honestly, if he didn't die from that, he would have died from chain smoking. I mean, between Roy Scheider and Robert Shaw, the amount of cigarettes that they smoked in Jaws 1 was off the charts. It really was. Like, you don't see that in movies as much anymore. You get the occasional puff or whatever. Roy Scheider, I swear he was on the beach with a cigarette when he was telling everybody to get out of the water. I don't remember that. But the power line thing, was dumb, but then I got triggered by that, and then I remembered there was a scene where they threw dynamite.
But that was in the first one, Russ.
That was in the first one, right? They threw dynamite in the first one.
Well, the funny thing was in the second one, the shark is sailing out to the ocean, and everybody is happy that it's sailing out into the ocean. And Brody whacks a paddle on the power line to bring the shark back, so we can wait on the power line. I mean,
right. Again, Robert Shaw should have been in a much bigger boat. Well, like the fact that he was in a little boat was stupid in the first one. Yeah, if it was me, I would have been on like a big cruiser.
And Anthony. Where's the suspense in the first Jaws if Quint is on a Coast Guard cutter with a harpoon?
How about this? Safety first, Mike.
Yeah, but nobody would watch it because you could hit the friggin' shark with the Coast Guard.
You're going to go out and hunt the shark. He's still hunting the shark, but at least now he's looking out for personal safety. Hey, I don't care. The guy got bitten in half. That's his problem. But
okay, so then they make Jaws 3D.
Yeah, I was out after 2.
Okay, so Jaws.
All I can remember about Jaws 3D was, maybe that was that? No, maybe not. I was thinking when were they in the underwater lab and the thing came in? And that was the movie with Samuel L. Jackson. That was not a Jaws. No, this was another one that was like that a shark that was heading towards a tube. And everybody's like starting to scream. I don't know. Maybe Dennis Quaid was in it. I'm trying. Maybe.
No, well, okay. I mean,
here's a Dennis Quaid thing for you.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid was in Jaws 3D.
Yes,
okay.
That was it. And that's
okay.
What
So I mean, I saw it once. So maybe
it was the amusement park, right? I think it was in an amusement park or an underwater park, like a SeaWorld almost, and that's the scene where the shark starts coming towards the tube.
It might have been because Louis Gossett Jr. was like a rich billionaire, sort of like the Richard Attenborough character from Jurassic Park.
Yes.
So I think the plot was they were trying to capture the shark, and Dennis Quaid plays Brody's son. So there's the connection to the first movie, and it's brutal. It was such.
But here's the thing: at that time, there was a comeback for 3D because 3D was around when my dad was a teenager. Then it was around when I was a little kid. Then it went away again, and then it came back again, right? And so I went and saw a movie called Polyester in the theaters, and that was 3D, and it also had scratch and sniff cards to go along with the movie. And one of the scratch and sniffs was a fart. It was. And like, that's how bad. But the 3D, even at that point, was not great. Really, 3D wasn't great again until Marvel. Marvel is the one who put 3D where it is now.
What was the Sandra Bullock Clooney movie in outer space? I can't think. A few years ago. It was just a few years ago.
I know which one you mean. Yeah,
and that was in 3D, and I'm
floating around. I don't know.
Yeah, right. I'm watching that movie with 3D glasses. They give me 3D glasses. I go into the theater. I'm watching it. I'm like, wait a second, this is just not working here. And they directed me to a theater that was regular, not 3D.
That's funny.
Okay,
so a couple questions about Jaws. Was it the same animatronic shark for the first and second one? Do we know?
I don't know. It probably
judging from the fact that Hollywood, depending on what you can use for a budget.
It probably wasn't, Russ, because the production delays on the first one was all the friggin' shark. And the funny thing was, it worked out fantastic because it built the suspense that you didn't see the shark.
That's true.
And the
problem they couldn't even use it for a while. Yeah.
When you see the shark in that famous scene where like you need a bigger boat, 25, 3 tons of, you see the shark going by, and you basically see the outboard motor friggin' on the back of it as it's going along. It's like it doesn't move. It's not. It's basically a big cinder block, basically.
I mean, but let's face it. If I'm out in the water, right, and I see somebody get pulled under, I'm swimming to shore, man, because I can't save that person anymore anyhow.
Well, I
know Anthony's going to pretend that he's going to go out and try and fight the shark and save him.
No.
Okay.
No. It's a shark. I'm going out there and let's have a harpoon gun.
But let's finish the. It would be enough if there was a trilogy, but they had to throw one more. Jaws 4 or Jaws the Revenge. And
what year was that?
1987.
Maybe is that the one with? No, is it 3 or maybe I'm trying to think. With Jaws, that was the one with.
Well, let me tell you. Okay, here.
Yeah,
Okay, it was with the main star was the wife,
Lorraine Gary.
Lorraine Gray.
Okay.
And so you know it's bad as it is. Okay, and here's the plot twist. Roy Scheider has died of a heart attack, Russ.
A black lung, yeah.
Black lung.
Probably, yes.
And the Dennis Quaid character, who was afraid of sharks but becomes a shark
It
scientist.
was Jaws the Revenge that had
Right. That's what I said. He died. The shark kills him. So now the younger brother, who was traumatized in Jaws 2 by the shark, he was with all the friends in the water. He now is going to avenge his brother's death, along with his mother, along with Mario Van Peebles with a bad Jamaican accent.
They forced him in movies those couple of years. Mario Van Peebles was in everything.
Yeah, and I say this with all kindness because I love this guy as an actor. The biggest movie star whore in terms of money, Michael Caine, who would do anything. He worked with Steven Seagal. That's how bad it was.
You paid him, he showed up.
Oh my god! And it was a movie that Steven Seagal directed about the environment up in Alaska called On Deadly Ground. It was brutal.
I bet you they're gonna remake. They'll remake Jaws in like a year or two. What?
No, they will not. They will not.
I bet you they will, Mike. They're remaking everything. Jaws being remade is
that movie.
There are no sharks frozen underneath Eklund's backyard rink, at least. So that's
if the Jaws
remake,
the Jaws remake will be it'll be on Margate, and it will come and it will eat Lucy and anybody else who's on the beach in Margate. So like Eck, Justin Williams, whoever else is there.
The remake will be called Foxes. It's not the Jodie Foster movie, but it's about the foxes under X Rink.
Sharks are incredibly important species to the ecosphere.
Ecosystem, sure, but we're just talking about Jaws and the fact that how many of them they made and how bad some of them were.
Yes, I love Michael Cohen's like, Caine's a great. Yeah, Michael Caine's a great actor. I'm just saying he will do anything.
He did so many bad parts just for money.
Anything. Anyway, all right.
She heard your voice, Mike. She heard your voice.
Oh, there you go. Let's start the show.
All right. Hold on.
There you go.
Every time she hears Mike's voice, that's all it takes. Funny.
Yes, the first Jaws is still a classic. There's no question.
Oh, well, while we're waiting for Eckles, let's get Anthony's feelings on the Carson Wentz trade.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
At this point, I mean, listen, I think Howie had tried to drum up a market that he just could not really generate. And the minute the Bears got out and they were stuck with the Colts, and that's where Wentz wanted to go. The Bears got out because they felt that, why are we going to try to convince the guy to come here when he doesn't want to come?
He doesn't want to be there, yeah.
So the Eagles basically took what they could so they could save, $10 million on whatever the cap charge was, and now they got that $34 million in dead weight. Howie's, listen, end of the day, it's an organizational failure up and down.
I would rather have paid a third and a conditional first for Wentz than paid the Rams paid for Stafford.
Yeah, in this circumstance, that's what they're looking at here in terms of what they, the Rams are desperate and think that Stafford can get them over the top, and the Colts have a little more time to play with Wentz.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the great quote.
Those are the factors.
I remember this quote. Michael Caine is quoted to say, "I read the first page of the script and then the last. If my character is on both of them, I'll do the bleeping picture."
All right, no, say it right. I'll do the bloody picture.
Beautiful.
All right, go ahead.
All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Thursday, February 18th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Anthony Mingioni.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I wanted to start today with that Olympic discussion we had because I've been digging deep into it over the last 24 hours. And what happens here if the U.S. does boycott the China Olympics, Winter Olympics, and if Canada were to follow suit too, like what would happen in that case too?
Well, Canada won't follow suit; they never do.
We don't. Yeah, I'm going to assume that you're right, but this is far beyond the coronavirus. It's also genocide and all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to get into that political talk about that stuff.
Let me bolster your point by saying, Canada right now, in terms of their relationship with China, there's obviously a lot of Chinese expatriates, a lot of Chinese Canadians in Vancouver and Toronto, especially. Their government is very sensitive to what's going on in China because of those reasons and for other reasons. The Trudeau government and China are not on the same page. There's a lot of tension going on there. So I'm not saying that they would, just go in lockstep with the U.S., but I think they have the same series of problems that the U.S. has with China. So I do think that if the U.S. boycotted, that Canada might go along with it.
I mean, the coronavirus part of it, whatever. I'm not a China virus type person.
That's at the heart of it.
That's a different thing. There's other stuff, but the other stuff is way more serious to the U.S., I think. Sure. And to Canada, like in Canada, who definitely is usually holds themselves to a very high moral compass. I think this would be so. Let's just. But my whole point of this is not to get into that discussion. My point of this is to get into the discussion of what happens now, like what happens next if that were to happen to what we do, which is hockey, to the NHL sending their players there and stuff like that. And I contacted Bill Daly, this morning and talked to him about it briefly, and was looking for, because I figured maybe, hey, first of all, here's the thought process. We'll go through it again for those who missed it before. Say the U.S. boycotts and Canada doesn't boycott. Well, now is the NHL still sending its players over there? Would they still allow the other players to go from other countries? Would NBC then not cover the Olympics? In which case, NBC would come to the NHL and say, we want to keep the games going. If they want to keep the games going, would the NHL keep the games going with the players from other countries not on those teams, similar to what you see in soccer a lot when soccer guys go to play for their countries and the soccer teams still keep playing? Right. Or would the NHL just say, no, none of our players are going? And has this been worked out? Like, was this ever discussed with the NHLPA? Like, is there what I wanted to know is I kind of figured there was a plan, maybe. It's China. We should think about what happens if we boycott. What next? So I went, and I talked to the NHL, and I, couldn't get a real solid answer from the NHLPA at all. But I wanted an actual quote. And Bill Daly said, my actual quote is this. I haven't put it up yet on my blog, but I'll give it to you guys first here. All fair questions. None of them, however, have been broached or discussed with the PA. So premature at this point to provide any answers.
Right. Now, they're still in negotiations with the IOC. So nothing is etched in stone right now. But here's the thing. Yeah. I would find it hard to believe that if the U.S. boycotted, that the league would shut down because okay, or if you kept, what I'm saying is if you kept going, it's not just okay. The U.S. players are staying, but Canadian players are going. If the Canada doesn't boycott, the Finns, the Swedes, the Czechs, the Russians. So unless you're prepared to go 2 weeks with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms being in Philadelphia or the Toronto Marlies playing at Scotiabank Arena, I don't think NBC wants a second-rate talent pool on games on NBC. I think they want the stars.
Yeah, I think the NHL will have to send the players that are for countries that are there. I don't think they're going to be able to keep the players, but I do think the league will continue. That's the thing. If the U.S. boycotts, I think, and if the U.S. boycotts but nobody else does, then you have an issue where maybe the league would still shut down. If the U.S. and Canada boycott, the league won't shut down, and what'll happen is they'll just continue and they'll just send those players, and like X said, they just won't be on the roster for a little while.
I mean, that's something the league has never done anything like that.
I know.
And whether or not that's something that they would be comfortable with or not, I think is very up in the air. It doesn't seem like something that they would normally be comfortable with at all.
This is the problem with this, and this isn't Bill Daly's fault because he gave you an honest answer.
Yeah.
The problem is the IOC will take this down to the very last minute with these awful negotiations that always go on, for which they never do anything until the end, and then they say, yeah, we'll pay for the insurance. They won't give them anything. They'll probably say, yeah, we can't give you jersey sales, but we'll mention you on our free podcast. It's going to be something stupid like that. Right. And we'll go down to the wire on negotiations, and that makes it harder on the NHL too.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Anthony, what do you think? What do you think of it?
Sorry, guys, I got a little bit cut off there, so I caught like half of it. And
Well, about the potential of the U.S. boycotting the Olympics and what the NHL would do if the U.S. did.
Yeah, it's. I mean, a real conundrum, obviously, for the league, and again, you do take steps in that regard. It would not. I don't think it would be a good look though for the league in this circumstance if there is a boycott that.
Right, I agree with that too.
That they go independently. It just. I think they would probably follow pretty much in step with the rest of whatever the Team USA decides to do as an organization.
Well, and yeah, there are a lot of players who might have issues with going to China too.
Well, Eck, I was going to ask you this. Remember, we heard leading up to Pyeongchang that Ovechkin's going to go. He's going to leave the team.
Right.
You don't think that's? I mean, he missed out on one already. He missed out on a gold medal.
But he didn't, right? He didn't leave the team.
But he didn't leave the team.
He threatened, and he said, "I'm 100% going." Like I remember that.
That's true.
He did
this
not
time
go.
he might though.
This time he might.
He's close to the end. What he could do is just not sign his contract.
Well, yeah, but there's a lot of money and ego. I mean, Ovechkin likes to play for Russia, and more than anything else, Ovechkin wants it known that he likes to play for Russia more than even I think he likes to play for Russia. Like he wants the Russians to know that because he sees his future, I'm sure, working in Russian hockey. So to me,
of course, he's gonna
right, he's gonna be like right. So to do that, he's got to at least put on this thing. I'm going no matter what.
No, I think it's more than that. I think this time, honestly, because his contract is up, I could see him not signing his contract, going and playing the Olympics, and then signing a contract with the Capitals after the Olympics. That's what I could see happening, and the NHL can't do anything about it.
Well, the NHL could.
That's true. I mean, if he doesn't have a contract, he could say, "Yeah, you're right."
Well, no. Okay,
good point.
Okay, I mean that's possible. He could do it. He could do a Matt Sundin,
why not?
And sign halfway through the season. Yes, he could do that because he'd be a UFA, but he could sign anywhere. The other thing, I mean, he could also make the excuse that Kuznetsov will be in Washington taking care of things because he can't play for Russia. So you got at least somebody who's going to be playing there.
Right.
When we know the reason why.
Right.
But
there's a lot of issues there, and you're talking about a lot of Yeah, and Ted Leonsis, that's true. Ted Leonsis was brought up by Anthony in the chat, and Ted Leonsis backed him on that. Remember, backed him on going to Russia.
Yes, he did, and so he would back him again.
But he still.
It was the
didn't go. He didn't go.
It was the league that did. But since Ovechkin is his own agent, he doesn't have to sign a contract. He could just.
That's a really interesting point that you're making, Russ. Because honestly, he is wide open, and there's no reason why he can say, "Listen, I'm going to sign after the Olympics," and not say I'm going to. I mean, he can sign with anybody. You're right, Mike. But he can sign with anybody anyway. Like he can. That doesn't matter. So he can do that on July 1st if he wanted to. He's not going to sign with anybody. He's going to play.
Vlad will make a call and he'll be like, "All right,
you know what? With the Capitals, or he's not going to play anywhere at all." I'm pretty convinced of that.
Yeah,
I would concur. It's pretty much he and Crosby pretty much call their shots with regards to where they're going to decide to play their career.
Yes.
So,
I don't know. And the team will be fine with it. The Caps will say, "Fine, that's where the Caps will be okay with it because it's really not. They miss him for half a year, assuming next year is relatively normal, like we start in October, November."
Yeah, no, the Navalny won't be making a call because they don't have cell service in Siberia in the Gulag.
Now, I haven't gotten back from the PA. Hasn't gotten back to me yet. I have 3 different emails and calls out to them on this, but I think it's interesting that this was not broached. Like, I really think that needs to be discussed for a second because this was always a possibility, right?
What we're not mentioning here, Eck, is what Russ brought up earlier in the week or last week was that they moved the games,
and that could be the easier. I shouldn't say easier, but that could be the alternative thing.
I did do some research on that as well. And I couldn't get anybody from the International Olympic Committee. I don't really have a I did.
Well, at least you tried.
I did. I actually did try. I mean, I called up the international. I made a phone call to the number that they have for that. And I got.
And they said it's disconnected, right?
This is an anonymous hockey blogger. I'm just curious what you want to do with this. Please call me back at 21. No, I didn't quite. I did leave a message with somebody, but I also emailed somebody there. But then there was a Newsweek article that came out 2 days ago on this, and the quote from that was was more telling. And in that article, they actually say that the International Olympic Committee does not support boycotting the games. Obviously, of course not. They're their games. It's like
right. No, because they can't make money. That's why.
They don't support it for any reason whatsoever.
No.
And they are not
Loyalty to the rings only.
No,
And
but
they are
that is
right.
a great point, Eck, because in history, that is why countries have boycotted the Olympics, because they've never had the spine or the backbone to do it themselves.
Yeah, the IOC has already gotten their free concubines from Beijing, so of course they're they don't want to back out.
Yeah, and let me read else what I have. Bring up my other notes I have.
Like that's not true, Anthony. Look up Juan Antonio Samaranch.
What if you have children listening and wondering, Mom, Dad, what's a concubine?
Right.
We're teaching kids
I believe in education.
Okay, so here's the quote. Okay, so now China's already spent billions, obviously, in infrastructure. They want to. They were using this to coincide with the Chinese New Year in 2022.
Just like it coincided with the spread of COVID in Wuhan last
year.
All
right. However, Mike Waltz, who was the Republican representative from Florida, had his say on it. Doesn't believe they should not go. The interesting thing, so the U.S. Olympics Committee and the Canadian Olympic Committee think they should go. Okay, again, they're the Olympic Committee, but the USOPC statement. This is the Olympic USOPC that they're against the boycotts, and we oppose game boycotts because they have been shown already to negatively impact athletes. This is the American Olympic Committee, while not effectively addressing the global issues. We believe more effective course of action is for governments of the world and China to engage directly on human rights and geopolitical issues. That's a great idea. Let's just do that. I mean, obviously,
that doesn't work. That's why the boycott works, because
yes,
right. And the boycott of America,
period.
The boycott of America really works because, like, remember, this is a advertisement for China.
Right.
This is 100% advertisement to go see China, go visit China.
And the water tiger, because it's the year of the water tiger.
Okay, there you go.
So 2022, Mike, look it up.
I thought it was the bull.
I'm not disputing you. I just don't know what the hell a water tiger is.
I gotta check. I thought it was the bull.
But here's
so as far as moving it goes, I'm trying to find the okay. So the resolution also identifies it. Control. Okay, make it see. So,
okay. First, the U.S. boycotted in 1980. It wasn't because they boycotted because of the invasion of Afghanistan. What happened was the athletes were the ones who suffered. And really, it was a punch in the nose to the Russians, but it really didn't affect them that much. And then all they did was reciprocate in 1984 in Los Angeles. So, you could say it's a shot across the bow of the Chinese, but in the end, it's the athletes. It's Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel and all the U.S. hockey players who are going and all the speed skaters and figure skaters that are going to suffer. So
they don't suffer. Than the NHL players.
They've been working for 4 years, Russ. For
right. No, those not the NHL players, but the NHL players. This is an ego trip for them.
It's the real Olympic athletes that all of a sudden have no outlet that they've been training 4 years for. They're the ones that suffer.
Right. And I mean, those are the people you feel absolutely horrendous for, and because especially during this time when everyone's working through COVID.
Although they get paid well by our government to keep training and doing that too.
I have to know a freestyle skier, who does the thing and the flips ups and all this stuff. And I know how hard that she's been working through this whole process. Like it's insane, like to get. And so for her to for the Olympics be canceled for her would be devastating. Absolutely devastating. And it is for most of these people. This is she's never been good enough to go before. She's finally qualified. It's a really big freaking deal. So basically
in 80 when they were boycotted, I spoke to athletes 4 years later in 84 when I was going to college in Houston, and so I knew what the impact was. And some of them were actually finally getting to go to the Olympics. So they literally went right from the college to there because they would train there. So I get it. I do. But
but
if the U.S. doesn't go, by the way, also that means probably that the U.K. is not going. That means that there's other countries in Europe that probably don't go as well. So it becomes a bigger issue on all sorts of levels. Now,
but it never stops the Olympics. The Olympics always happens because of that quote that you just said, and they hide behind that quote.
Now, moving the Olympics, according to this article, is a non-starter. They're moving these Olympics. They can't. That's not going to happen. That they're not going to move these. The International Olympic Committee says these Olympics have been promised to China. They're going to be in China. This is where they're going to be. So, the idea of moving them to a country where,
which means they've been paid off already. and they're not going, and they can't refund the money. So that's the whole reason why.
Well, the problem here is, like there's nothing. We're at the point where it's either this is not like, okay, China. If China, like moves their car off your lawn, you'll have the Olympics. Like we're at a point now where China is like these none of these issues are going to get fixed in time for the Olympics. Like China's not fixing anything. Like
it's less than a year. That's less than
a year. There's no way they're going to like release political prisoners and all this stuff's going to happen, right? That's not. So we really are at just a moralistic.
I'll tell you. I'll give you a solution. You want a solution? If I'm Justin Trudeau, I mean Anna's thinking about it, but if I'm Justin Trudeau, I call up Gary Bettman and I say, hey, look, if our two countries boycott, but they still have the Olympics, why don't we shut down the league and have a Canada Cup? That is
something that I think will happen, and
that would be terrific. We would all love that.
It would be shut down the league and maybe have the World Cup of Hockey.
The return of Team North America again?
No. Not their product.
Maybe Ralph Kruger can get
over. If it happens for us, it's the World Cup of Hockey and not the Canada Cup.
Another Canada Cup would be good.
They won't call it that. You know that.
They won't call it that because the World Cup of Hockey brings too much money in for the players.
Yeah, right. That's fine, and I'm okay with it. Maybe
and really, what Anya's thinking, Russ, when she looks at you like that, is she's thinking, one day my owners will die and I will eat them. That's all cats ever think when they look at you. But if I was bigger, if I was slightly bigger, they would be in trouble.
That's true.
Anyway, I don't speak for Mike in the chat room, by the way, Mike. when you chat with my name in there, be a little more careful.
I own that.
For those who are curious, the way
I need to go see now. What did you say?
Nick and I are both signed in under Pele Eklund because he runs things.
No.
When Mike puts something in there, I get letters. I get nastygrams, Mike. Thousands of them.
Somebody brought the name. I just made an observation.
To be fair, I think if Beck could put that, he'd have put half pound because he doesn't have that kind of ego.
Okay.
You don't talk about it if you don't need to. All right, so to me, here's the issue. Hopefully lost of making good time. All right, the issue is this, Mike. Besides the fact that anything written in the chat room on Pele Eklund is not necessarily from me. I usually put back at the end of it.
I said it.
You have to sign off now and everything. It's got to say, X next to it.
I don't understand. People are out there waiting to send me nastygrams all the friggin' time.
I said it was me.
That was Mike. Clearly, Mike.
I own it.
That's not my style. All right. Anyway, but partially, at least at times, Mike's style. All right. So, is Ralph Kruger back yet? All right. No, he's speaking of Team Europe. Anyway, the nice transition there to this. So we're going to follow this. We're going to stay on top of this. I'm going to keep in my context at NHLPA. I'm going to keep in my context with the league and see where we can get. I'm sure that they're talking about it. Bill Daly's saying that that's the public comment they're willing to go out there.
Right.
The idea is that, of course, they've already once someone heard the possibility of a boycott, there were already discussions being had. So
it's nothing official. So
they haven't come to any conclusions at all. And I do think that I don't see them sending Canada, Sweden, and I don't see that happening. I don't see it happening because I think that the look on that would be so bad. Like you're a player playing in the U.S. Whatever. You're Sidney Crosby playing for a U.S. team. The U.S. boycotts. You leave your U.S. team. Okay. In Canada, when the U.S. is boycotting, that's a bad look for these guys. It really is. I don't
know. It gets complicated. I would not blame the player. I would not say, like me, I wouldn't personally go out there and say, well, no, Sidney, you're doing the wrong thing because my country is boycotted, because it's not his country.
Right.
The whole issue here is, I mean, we dealt with it in 2018 and it was across the board. So it was, but if it's the U.S. singularly boycotting, you're going to have Connor McDavid and Crosby and the big names in the NHL and Barakov for Finland and Erik Karlsson for Sweden and Ovechkin for Russia.
Enough to sell, it is.
Yeah, all saying, okay, the U.S. boycotting has nothing to do with us, and we want to represent our country, so let us go. I think it's one of two things. Yeah. I think it's either the U.S. players end up staying and they play with essentially AHL caliber rosters for 2 weeks.
That punishes the U.S. players twice, though.
I know, but it's not in their control. It's the government's control.
Right.
They're better off just giving
That's why I said they're the
them a break in the middle of the season and just saying we're not going to play until this starts again.
And maybe they do that, but
the problem with that,
we could talk about what Connor McDavid did on the ice in the NHL.
We will get to that. We will get to that next. But besides that, Mike, as we talked about yesterday, I mean, they could say we're going to shut down, but now NBC, who's not covering the Olympics because they've been boycotted, comes to the NHL and says, "Where's our games?"
There's always the dart championships.
Yeah, there is. There's always darts. Always darts. Really fun sport. All right, let's move on.
As exciting as bowling on TV. Yeah.
Let's move on. Do we have anything to talk about hockey? Let's start with this for a second because this was asked in the chat room, and I'll ask Anthony of this since we have Anthony. I don't know if you're going tonight, Anthony. I'm not sure yet.
I'm not. I'm on call here at the house, especially with my in-laws.
Yeah. So. You're going to go, Rush? You're going to try to get down?
I'll make it. No problem.
I really want to go and get the heck out of the house for a second, so I might try.
It already stopped here, so
yeah. If the roads get better here, I'm going to give it a shot. All right. So, but the Flyers or a version of the Flyers. The question in the chat room is: are the Phantoms playing the Rangers tonight?
Are the Phantoms playing the Wolfpack? I think is more like it.
Right. Circumstance. Right. What are your thoughts, Ant, on this?
I mean, they're trying to get this thing, get things going before things, fall too far back. I'm not a fan of it, but I mean, we are in a unique circumstance here.
Sure.
And I think both teams at this point right now have, those lineups aren't great, but I mean, they are what they are based on the situation. And again, the league, come hell or high water, wants to get this Lake Tahoe thing going. Is this happening? To me even more of a concern as because of the fact that 7 Flyer players are not going to be in that game. And
right now, would tonight happen? Were the Lake Tahoe thing not happening?
No, it would not happen.
I don't think so. I think there's a chance. I mean, it depends. They might have played, but I do feel like
I think it would fall on the chance that it wouldn't have.
Exactly. I would have leaned in that direction.
What's the benefit in that? Like, I mean, honestly, you're just getting a chance to lose more players. So in reality, if you want to play Lake Tahoe, just wait till Lake Tahoe.
No, because the benefit is you have to advance. You have to let the season continue if you can, and also these guys get to keep practicing. And then you're also keep testing, and then you hope that some of these other players come back by Sunday. That's the hope.
I think we need to think about it.
It's already been established. I know that the 7 players that are on the Flyers' current COVID list will not play in Lake Tahoe.
So none of them are. I thought you were playing.
Elaine Vigneault said that during press.
Okay.
They're not playing.
Was that okay? Because I thought Giroux was, but he's not, huh? Mm-mm. Okay. All right. So
then they're marketing this team because this is the team that's going to be in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, they're marketing it, and the fact of the matter is, when they you're getting against the Boston team that's pretty.
Well, it's not like they're playing a good team, Mike. I mean, let's Anthony. I mean, they're not playing. I meant Anthony, not Mike. Sorry, Mike. It's not like they're playing a good team or anything in Tahoe.
Boston's not that good, Eck. You know that. You've said that.
Exactly.
They're not great. All right, but here's they're very, very good though. Do we not? Does not the NHL need to come up with something like if you have a certain number, like 6 or 7 players on the COVID list, you just can't play? I mean, I just think
they're not going to do that because the Devils had 17. So clearly, when you got over 10, that was probably the number because 7 are on the squad.
What it comes down to is, it comes down to a numerical. Can you ice a roster?
Right.
And in Philadelphia's case, they can.
You can. All the teams can ice a roster. All the teams have AHL teams. I mean, everybody's got an AHL team.
But again, I think it also comes down to scheduling at this point now. The Flyers now, we already know that there's 5 games that have now been officially rescheduled.
Right.
The first one obviously is going to be the Capitals game from late April's now been moved up to March 7th. And there's been a lot of change. There's still 3 more games that they have to still to figure out for Philadelphia. I think that's what it's coming down to is that it gets to the point where in terms of the repetition of games and the amount of games in a row that it gets dangerous. So you take it on the chin, I think, a little bit with a depleted roster, but you play those games because then as you move forward, you still have this semblance of somewhat of a normal schedule, even if it is a bit more compacted. You keep taking more time off. And I think at that point you're asking for potential injuries in this circumstance.
Yeah, you got to keep guys playing if you can.
Is there a benefit to? Is there something that we should we look at, like, the grass always greener on the other side type thing here, and say, okay, you know what? Let's just realize that the cool thing about this is we get a chance, and during this COVID time, to see these prospects.
Yeah, look, I'm happy. I wrote about Maxime.
Well, for you, Russ, this is great, right? I mean, you wanted.
Yeah, I wrote about Shushko 2 years ago. I'm happy to see the kid get a chance. He wouldn't have gotten a chance under normal circumstances. Now, what if he scores a hat trick tonight and has a goal in the next game? Now, all of a sudden, you might make an argument that he could stay up with the team.
At the end of the day, this is an opportunity, and Vino framed it that way as some guys. He said, "quote some guys have been clamoring for more opportunity." Well,
you got it.
Here's you want an opportunity. It just dropped in your lap.
Yeah, Sam Morin's playing left wing now. So if Sam Morin can hack it.
I don't think is in the lineup. I think he's still down.
He's just on with the team. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think he's not. When I checked lines, I think after that.
I saw earlier someone had him in, but they could be wrong.
Is that COVID, or is that just their choice? They just they're choosing not to play him.
If they don't play him, they're choosing not to play him. He didn't play very well at left wing.
I can check on that.
He's not an NHL left winger, but under these circumstances, you can throw him in there, I suppose.
Right.
You could say it for a second. Hold on, let me figure that out.
Right.
Yeah. So as he planned that out, let's talk a little bit about. I watched last night Ottawa and Toronto. I wanted to talk. I know we never talked about the Leafs. So I thought
yeah, we never talk about the Leafs.
Never.
I thought it came up because I did watch this game.
Mm-hmm.
And and Toronto, and you couldn't have more different games, right? Than the two games.
That's 2.5 hours that you won't get back because it was one of the more boring games of the year.
It really was, but I'll tell you what I was proud of, Mike. Toronto needs to learn how to play boring games.
I apologize, real quick. Morin actually is listed yesterday when Bill Meltzer posted lines in practice.
No,
Morin, he has a fourth line left wing with Andrea and Sishko. Sorry,
I was going to say, that game was more like, and I mean, obviously not the level of competition because the Senators are young and upcoming, but they always work themselves up to play the Leafs, and it was a tight game. It was a low event game, and low event games are what you're going to get in the playoffs. So that, and in that sense, they played a game where they limited offensive chances. Anderson played well, and they got a key goal from Kerfoot in the third period and won a 2-1 game. I think that's coming off that 6-5 train wreck. That was a constructive victory. Now, the thing is, tonight they play the third and four nights against Ottawa, and Sheldon Keefe was playing coy about who they're going to start in goal. He wouldn't commit to Michael Hutchinson.
He's going to play Hutchinson.
He's going to play Hutchinson. He's just trying to keep the heat off. And
right.
Which, the thing is, if they lose 5-1 and Hutchinson is a sieve, then
I mean, you almost just have to do it. You can't keep playing Anderson.
But listen, the way you handle this as the coaches, if you lose 5-1 to Ottawa, that's not Hutchinson's fault, man. It can't be Hutchinson. I mean, it's like the bottom line is, this is like you have to be able to beat Ottawa with your backup goalie, no matter who it is.
I agree.
If it's me, you should win that game. For sure.
Well, I mean, that goes without saying.
I have my stuff in the car. Every time I go down there, I'm ready to go. Just
you just already out there.
Players are paying attention. My stuff is.
Okay, but just to be fair, Ek, I think Jason Martinez is a little better than you, but not a lot. But he is.
Whoa, hold off now.
No, he is. He is.
No, he isn't. No, I'll tell you.
I mean, look, I've seen you both play. I'm being honest. It's close, but he's a little better.
Who gave up more goals in that game? Who gave up more goals?
You take up more space in the net. In fairness to you.
Wow.
I think it was. I was hoping that was going to be. You could frame that as a positional thing, like you're better positionally, but. We know that's not where Russ is going, so
If anything, Jason is way better positionally. That I'll give him 100%.
Yeah,
but he doesn't. He doesn't have my quickness, Russ. He doesn't have it. Nope. There you go. So there you have it.
You are younger than Jason, I think. You might be.
I don't know. Pretty close.
That's close too.
But I gave up one goal. Russ, you gave up 4. I'm just saying. We played.
They had to tighten things up defensively in front because they're like
they did not.
We have to carry Ek. I mean, I was at that game, so
I stopped 2 breakaways. Anthony, come on, that's not tightened up defense.
I know I was there.
Martinez's defense was horrible that game. I remember that game well.
Jason can handle it, I mean, that's what happens.
Oh, now, wow, now
the other goalie comes in. We better tighten this thing up now. It's going to look real bad.
Wow.
Yeah, you know how bad this game was. The best player on the ice
was there.
You know how bad this game was. The best player on the ice was Aki Berg.
Hockeyberg.
Really? Last night? That's something. All right. Let's get
We're off the rails.
I did watch the show.
I'm hurt now. Really, really hurt that that's the case. But you guys probably had to tighten up the defense because you sure didn't show it. I'll say that much.
We were at ice level. We saw the whole game.
I was a neutral observer on the bench there.
I've got video of the whole thing.
We were there too. We saw.
I've got video of the entire game.
Wayne Fish out there, though. Remember that.
Yes.
Sorry, Mike. Yes, we'll get back to where we were. All right. I'm going to change topics completely for a second. I also watched Edmonton Winnipeg last night, which was, again, it's interesting, these like back and forth games. Edmonton needed that win for sure. You could see like Smith's reaction when they finally won was like he won a playoff game. That's how important that game was to Edmonton last night.
I know things are fluid right now in the North and things can change, but I really like the fact that it's right now Edmonton and Calgary battling for fourth spot. I think that there will be dead bodies littered in Alberta.
Yeah.
These teams play 9 more times over the last 40 some odd games. You're going to see the morgues in Edmonton and Calgary will be packed to the rafters with these teams.
I think what's going to happen is that, we always talk about, on the commercials, these teams hate each other. They're going to be sick of one another to the point where just like, they're almost going to they're going to go through their hatred stage. And then they're going to get to like the 8th or 9th game and be like, oh, you guys again, whatever.
I do want to say McDavid was very classy after the game because when he was talking about tying Crosby for the record, he wasn't talking a lot about Crosby, but after like a second question, what he did say is, I believe we've entered into a more offensive era than when I started, and that could be a part of it. So he actually did give a nod that, Crosby probably played against, again, Crosby got beat up from Darian Hatcher his first series against the Flyers, and he still got points on the board. I don't think McDavid ever gets chased like that now.
That's a good point. Also, he's always hard to catch, too.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, we're talking about a player in terms of speeds. I mean, Crosby's got good quickness, but
No. McDavid's at a whole level.
Crosby. I mean, as he's had the concussions, he's had some health issues, but Crosby plays a tough game. Like he's going to get that.
I always said this about him, Mac, is that he's Bobby Clark with a higher, even on a higher level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I've said that too. My feeling is that he is the best grinder ever to play the game. Like that I think he's the best grinder.
I think that's fair.
Well, how often also does he practices fairly decently with Brad Marchand, right? Don't they in the offseason?
Yeah.
So I mean, if the two of them are doing one-on-one things all the time, and we know Marchand. I mean, after a while, in order to get anything done against him, you have to grind like nobody's business.
Right.
So,
right. That's interesting.
I did see something talking only because Anthony brought up Marchand. I watched like 3 or 4 minutes of Behind the Bees, the Boston Bruins series that they put on NHL Network, and it happened to be the first day of practice this year where they said there was going to be contact. And so, of course, they have all eyes are on Marchand, and Marchand is pushing guys, tripping guys. At one point, one of his teammates said to Marchand, "You just tripped me." He goes, "That was a push. That wasn't a trip." And in Marchand's mind, he really does believe that, but he tripped his own teammate. I mean, it was unbelievable. Like it was.
There's no question that he's got that mentality that he has to wake himself up by playing physically.
I know.
To play the game. And it's like he's the kind of guy remember when Lindros was that way. Lindros, where they used to say the thing with Lindros, don't hit him. Don't hit him.
Apparently, Terry Karkner was that way too.
Yeah.
Well, remember Anthony? No, he hit Lindros in practice.
I know, and I remember that. No, I mean the whole thing of it is just
that was like a big deal.
But where Marchand's different is Marchand has figured out that he's not going to wait for someone to hit him. Like Lindros would wait for someone to hit him. Lindros he felt like he was Mario Lemieux sometimes in his head. I think and he wanted to skate around and make beautiful plays because he had a high skill level, and he wouldn't go out of his way, especially after concussions, to hit people. Like early on, he would.
Although I will tell you this about Lindros: the one thing as a fan that would annoy me about Lindros is he would look early part of the game for the smallest guy on the ice and just crush him against the board. Yeah. So if it was Theo Fleury, it was Theo Fleury. If it was
practice,
practice. It was like practice.
Target practice.
Yeah.
Pinata.
Oh, it was so much fun. I mean, watching Lindros in his first season in Philly as a fan was just a blast.
I mean, he was just a monster.
Didn't get out. It was literally, and we've talked about this before. Players you wait for their next shift for. You're always sitting there waiting. Like, when's that guy going to get out? he was that guy to a T, right? And when he got back on the ice and he had somebody lined up at all, like even if that player had like released the puck like a couple seconds ago, but that defenseman knew he was going to get freight trained, he was going to get beaten up. And man, oh man, I mean, his first game when he wins the game in overtime for the Flyers and scores his goal in a breakaway, it was just crazy. It was that was became like my favorite.
He was the next one. He was the one,
and he really was. I mean,
that first year, he looked like
we talked about his point totals.
What was going to be.
His point totals were crazy high for the amount of time he missed. And the area he played in with clutching and grabbing and 2-line passes and stuff like that.
And honestly, it seems like the concussion thing was heredity because his brother had it worse than he did.
Right.
And he really got to play an NHL career. So if Lindros just did, let's face it, if he didn't have the concussion problems, he'd have been one of the probably 5 to 10 best players of all time.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, so this brings me into my final topic here, which is something that we can discuss for a few minutes. And that is this. I've been thinking about this. I've been trying to write a story about it. I would have written about today, but the Olympic thing came up. And that is what are the 5 most important players, those important positions on the team?
I got to write this down.
All right, so it's just because we talk about the Leafs might need a 3rd-line center.
I'm going to write it on Panchero's napkin.
All right, there you go. Or do you need this? Did you need that?
Are there any grease spots on it?
No. These are.
Don't mess with Panchero's good stuff, man.
It feels like the top 3 the top 3 positions, which we can debate, to me are kind of obviously. No, this is not in order. Okay, there's like top line center, top defenseman, like absolute side defenseman and goalie, right?
I think those are in order. For me, those are the order.
That's the order. Okay, so to me, exactly opposite of that order. Like to me, no, because I when you look at teams that have had success over time, goalie is definitely has to be is number one. You have to have a goalie that can. I mean, we saw what Fleury did with Vegas. You have a goalie.
There is that flip of the coin act where it says you don't have to. I don't believe in this era that you have to have a Carey Price to win the Stanley Cup. I do not believe that.
It might not have to be a Carey Price, but you have to have a goalie that your team.
Well, you'll have a goalie.
No, a goalie that's good, that's really good, and your team believes in. That your team, if your players don't believe in your goalie, you're done. They have to, because that changes the way they play. It changes when they decide to pinch. It changes if they do this. It changes if they do that. So the offense. I've always said offense is incredibly highly affected by how your goalie is, and people don't even think about it. So to me, goalie is number one. To me, second is the top defenseman, and I bring up the Predators as an example here when I talk about this for a second. The Predators stay competitive by having great defensemen and a really good goalie for a very long time, but never had the top line center, and they did it without it, right?
But they didn't do it without it.
They traded a
top line center. They might have won the Stanley Cup.
And then they traded a top level defenseman for what they thought was a top line
center. Right. They tried doing that, and it didn't work out.
And that's exactly why, Anthony, a 1C is the most important thing in this league, because there are half the teams in the league don't have one.
But there are teams with 1Cs that don't win the Stanley Cup. But tell me about the top goalies that don't win the Stanley Cup eventually.
We talk about them all the time. It happens. It happens more than you think.
Yeah, Carey Price has won 4 Stanley Cups, right?
Carey Price is a great example. Mike. I mean, I agree with you. Carey Price has been on a horrible team though for his most.
Where is Jordan Binnington going to shake out in 5 years?
No, yeah, we don't know. I mean, I'm not saying Binnington's a guy, but when you look at the great goalies of all time, Hasek, Brodeur.
I think you need to win with a really good goalie. You need to win with an all-time goaltender if you don't have the rest of the parts in front.
Remember, Hasek won after his prime with a superstar Detroit team,
and when he was with Buffalo, had a 1C.
Right, and when it was
1Cs.
Right, when he was in Buffalo, his 1C was Mike Pekka, who was a great 3rd-line center.
Right.
And maybe an okay number 2, not a number 1, and they couldn't score with a damn, so they couldn't win.
Right. I mean,
I'll tell you why I think the 1C is most important, Nick, because A, you're putting that line out most frequently. B, that guy is also good defensively. He might penalty kill for you, and he's going to play the power play too sometimes if he is your team superstar. That's a lot of ways of affecting a game. A goalie does affect the game, but I could get a guy, a goalie manager, to win a game if I had these other parts in place.
You dropped in a goalie manager versus a QB manager.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, but I think that at the end of the day, I mean, this is always the debate. Would you rather have let's say Hal, Bobby Orr, or Bernie Perrant, I guess, or just picking three of the top goalies of all time. Like
I think the Flyers had enough of other things that Bernie Perrant was a luxury that they didn't necessarily even need because they
I
had
don't agree with that at all.
where I think Boston needed Bobby Orr, or they weren't going to win, and they had Cheevers, but it didn't matter.
Right.
Without Bobby Orr, Boston doesn't win.
Cheevers was a good goaltender. He wasn't.
But you also you have Espo and everything else on that.
Right.
You do, but not. But the Flyers were really stacked too.
No,
But
they were stacked in the middle.
I wouldn't say that Flyers team was stacked.
They were stacked. I grew up and I watched all
those. They were good. It was system, but
I mean, they had two lines.
They had a system and played it to a T.
They had arguably the best line in hockey next to Lafleur, Lemaire, and whoever with Montreal with Leach, Barber.
They had a great line, no question about it.
You know,
They had the best fighter.
Yeah.
They had solid defense, very
Solid
tough,
defense, but not like our defense. I mean,
well,
Jimmy Watson was probably their best
The
defense.
Watson brothers were bad. Now you're going to tell me
They were very good, but they weren't started. They weren't in like the Roman Yossi era category or something like that.
in their day, they kind of were. I mean,
Mhm.
there weren't that many offensive defensemen, but they were great defensemen for their day. They were.
yeah, Moose DuPont and Ed Van Imp. I mean, they're
Don't make me defend these guys. I hated those guys. Don't make me defend them.
Oh, I know.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, why? You should. No, it's okay, Russ. I mean, you're impartial.
we
I
should
You
know.
know you're a Flyers fan. I see you down there cheering for him.
we
Russ.
should continue this tomorrow, because
We can continue this tomorrow. I know we're running out of time, but I think it's something that we should all think about, and discuss with your significant other tonight before you go to sleep.
Sure.
Or, whatever. Just do your best. Come up with an idea.
I'll look for a significant other.
Find someone tonight to go on. There you go.
But maybe
Be careful. All I say to Michael is you have to be careful with what and who you're commenting under.
I was gonna say maybe I'll find one of those concubines.
Never date a girl who thinks the top line center is the best, most important position. Never.
No, you date that girl because she's smart.
No, never. All right, we'll talk about this again tomorrow. We'll get into this for sure, and we want people in the chat room and chime in the chat. Something that would, before we go, something you can support this. You can support this here podcast by going to patreon.com/hockey. That's Patreon, patreon.com/hockey. And help us out, because we could really use it for sure. And we try to do a show every day for you guys and do the best we can. If you can't afford it. If you can't afford that, that's fine. But if you can't afford it, do us a favor and tell people about it. Get out there and tell people about it. Get more people to watch the show once in a while, because that also helps us a ton. And leave a review if you can on iTunes. That also helps a lot. So
Just ignore my comments.
Yeah, don't worry about Mike. He's he's harmless. Mostly. But go out there and do that. We'd really appreciate it. And then come on back. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. We'll be back. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Enjoy the games.